The Mafia King watched the woman he loved disappear into flames and believed his life had ended with her. But what he did not know was that the woman everyone thought was dead was preparing to return. For years, Damian Blackwell had been a name that made powerful people cautious. In the dangerous world hidden beneath the city's luxury and wealth, his reputation carried more weight than money. At 36 years old, Damian controlled one of the strongest criminal empires in the country. He was known as a man who never hesitated, a strategist who always planned 10 steps ahead, a leader who built his empire through discipline, loyalty, and absolute control. To his enemies, Damian Blackwell was a ruthless force impossible to defeat. To his followers, he was the reason they survived in a world where weakness could cost everything. But there was one person who knew a different version of him, Isabella Monroe. Unlike everyone else, Isabella never looked at Damian and saw a feared Mafia King. She saw the man hidden behind a reputation. She was 28 years old, intelligent, independent, and brave enough to stand beside someone whose life was surrounded by danger. She had never belonged to Damian's world. She came from an ordinary life, far away from power struggles and criminal empires. Their paths crossed unexpectedly. At first, Damian believed Isabella was simply someone who had entered his life by accident. But slowly, she became the one person who could reach the parts of him nobody else had ever seen. She did not fear his silence. She did not judge his past. She reminded him that there was still a person behind the power. For the first time in years, Damian experienced something he thought he had lost forever: peace. With Isabella beside him, the constant pressure of enemies and betrayal felt lighter. She brought warmth into a life built around cold decisions. She made him believe that maybe he could have something beyond survival. Together, they secretly planned a future away from the endless conflicts surrounding them. A life where Damian was not just a Mafia King. A life where Isabella did not have to worry about the enemies waiting in the shadows. For the first time, Damian believed he had finally found something worth protecting. But peace never lasted long in his world. Victor Kingsley had been watching from the shadows. As a rival crime leader, Victor had spent years building his own influence, but Damian's success remained an obstacle he could never ignore. He hated the respect Damian commanded. He hated the loyalty surrounding him. Most importantly, he hated that Damian had found something Victor could never control: happiness. Victor understood that defeating Damian through power would be almost impossible. So he searched for the one thing that could break the Mafia King completely. He found Isabella. The woman who had softened Damian's heart became the target that would destroy it. Victor created a perfect trap, using betrayal, deception, and violence to strike where Damian was most vulnerable. And when the attack came, everything changed. The world Damian built could survive enemies. It could survive wars. But it could not survive losing Isabella. When the evidence suggested she had not escaped, Damian searched for answers until there was nothing left to find. The man who never showed weakness finally broke. The Mafia King had lost the only person who made him feel human. And after months of believing Isabella Monroe was gone forever, Damian finally accepted the painful truth. But thousands of miles away, inside a quiet room where nobody knew her real name, a woman slowly opened her eyes. A woman who remembered one thing before anything else: the name of the man who destroyed her life. Everyone believed Isabella Monroe died that night, but nobody knew she survived because someone wanted her forgotten. For the world, Isabella Monroe became another name connected to a tragedy nobody wanted to remember. The attack was considered a finished chapter. Damian Blackwell's enemies celebrated their victory, and the city moved forward believing the woman who changed the Mafia King was gone forever. But the truth was far different. Isabella survived. After the attack, she was found barely alive, away from the destruction that was meant to erase her completely. Her body was injured, her memories were damaged, and the life she once knew had disappeared in a single night. When she finally opened her eyes, she did not know where she was. She did not remember the full details of her past. She only carried fragments. A powerful man with a guarded heart. A feeling of safety she could not explain. A promise of a future that no longer existed. The people who rescued her understood that Isabella was connected to something dangerous. They knew powerful enemies would continue searching if they discovered she was alive. So they made a difficult choice. They hid her. They gave her a new identity and helped her start over far away from the world that had almost destroyed her. Isabella Monroe became someone else. For months, she lived quietly under a different name, trying to rebuild a life that felt unfamiliar. She learned how to depend only on herself. She became more cautious with her trust and stronger with every challenge she faced. The woman who once believed love could change even the darkest person was gone. The woman who returned from the pain was different. She was still kind. She was still intelligent. But now she understood that kindness without awareness could become a weakness in a world controlled by betrayal. Slowly, Isabella began remembering, and with every memory that returned, the truth became harder to accept. The attack had never been random. Victor Kingsley had planned everything. He knew Damian Blackwell was nearly impossible to defeat. He knew destroying his empire through direct force would only make him more dangerous. So Victor chose another path. He destroyed the one thing Damian could not replace: Isabella. Victor wanted Damian to lose control. He wanted the Mafia King to become consumed by anger and grief. He wanted the strongest man in the city to become emotionally broken. And when Isabella discovered Damian believed she was dead, a painful conflict grew inside her. A part of her still loved him. She remembered the man who saw her differently, the man who allowed her to see the humanity hidden behind his reputation. But love was no longer the only emotion she felt. Pain was there too. She discovered that Victor Kingsley had escaped consequences. The person responsible for destroying her life was still powerful, while she had been forced to disappear. Nobody had paid for what happened. Nobody had answered for her suffering. Meanwhile, Damian Blackwell had changed completely. After losing Isabella, he became colder than ever before. His empire grew stronger. His enemies feared him more, and his influence expanded. But the man Isabella once knew disappeared. The power remained. The heart did not. Isabella believed revenge was the only way to bring justice, until she discovered one final secret hidden inside the attack. A truth that changed everything. Damian Blackwell was never the person who betrayed her. The real enemy had been standing closer than she ever imagined. Damian Blackwell controlled an empire, but he could not control the memory of the woman he lost. After Isabella Monroe disappeared, the man everyone feared became someone even colder than before. The Mafia King who once carefully balanced power and loyalty became a person driven by silence, suspicion, and pain. The city noticed the change immediately. Damian's enemies became more cautious because his reputation grew darker. The man who once showed mercy when necessary now made decisions without hesitation. Every move became calculated. Every threat was answered with absolute control. His allies respected him, but they also feared him because they knew something had changed. Before Isabella, Damian was powerful. After losing her, he became untouchable. He stopped trusting people around him. Every friendship felt like a possible betrayal. Every agreement felt like another hidden trap. The same man who built his empire through loyalty began believing loyalty was only temporary. But behind closed doors, away from the world that feared him, Damian carried a secret pain nobody knew about. He never truly let Isabella go. He kept the memories of her hidden from everyone. The small moments they shared, the way she challenged him, the way she made him feel like he was more than his reputation. To the world, Isabella was gone. To Damian, she was a question that never received an answer. He refused to believe her death was simply an accident. Someone had planned it. Someone had taken the only person who ever made him vulnerable. And Damian Blackwell was determined to discover who. His investigation uncovered details that changed everything. Old records were incomplete. Important evidence had disappeared. Reports from the night of the attack had been altered. Someone had worked carefully to hide the truth. The most dangerous discovery was not that an enemy had attacked Isabella. It was realizing someone inside Damian's own organization had helped them, a person close enough to know his movements, a person trusted enough to access private information. For Damian, betrayal from the outside was expected. Betrayal from within was personal. While Damian searched for answers, Isabella watched from a distance. For the first time in years, She saw what had happened after she disappeared. She saw the pain behind his cold expression. She saw the man who had never truly moved on. The world believed Damian lost control because he lost power. But Isabella understood the truth. He lost a person who reminded him he still had a heart. That realization created a war inside her. One side wanted revenge. She wanted Damian to feel the same pain she carried. She wanted him to understand what it felt like to lose everything without answers. But another side remembered the man who loved her, the man who protected her, the man who was also a victim of the same enemy. Love and revenge fought inside Isabella's heart. And eventually, she made her decision. She would return. But she would not return as the same woman Damian Blackwell once loved. She would return stronger, smarter, and prepared to uncover every person responsible for destroying her life. The Mafia world was about to receive news that would shake every powerful family. A woman who died years ago had returned, and she was coming back for the people who believed they had buried her forever. The most dangerous enemy is not the person with power. It is the person who already lost everything. For years, Isabella Monroe existed only as a memory. The world believed her story had ended on the night of the attack. Her enemies celebrated. Damian Blackwell carried the pain alone. Everyone thought the past was buried forever. They were wrong. Isabella returned to the city with a new identity, a new purpose, and strength that came from surviving what should have destroyed her. She was no longer the woman who trusted everyone around her. She was no longer the woman who believed love could protect her from every danger. The woman who came back understood one truth. People who lose everything have nothing left to fear. Isabella moved through the city carefully, keeping her real identity hidden. She watched the people who once controlled her fate. She studied their movements, their alliances, and the secrets they tried to protect. Her goal was not simply revenge. It was the truth. Victor Kingsley had taken away her life, but Isabella wanted him to lose everything he built. She began collecting evidence against his organization. Hidden financial records, secret connections, and information that powerful people believed would never be discovered slowly came into her hands. Every secret became another piece of his downfall. Every mistake became another opportunity. The same intelligence that once helped Isabella survive an ordinary life now made her one of the most dangerous people in the city. Meanwhile, Damian Blackwell began noticing something unusual. His enemies were falling one by one. Important alliances were breaking apart. Victor Kingsley's influence was weakening, but it was not because of Damian. Someone else was attacking the people who had spent years trying to destroy him, and whoever this person was understood Damian's world perfectly. They knew how his enemies operated. They knew where their weaknesses were. They knew secrets that only someone close to the conflict could know. Damian became determined to discover the identity of the person silently changing the balance of power. For the first time in years, someone was moving around him like a ghost who seemed to know him better than anyone alive. As Damian investigated, Isabella found herself getting closer to the man she once loved. She watched him from a distance. She saw the changes in him, the colder expression, the loneliness behind his strength, the pain he tried to hide from everyone. Part of her wanted to remember only the betrayal and the suffering. Part of her wanted to believe Damian was still the man who made her feel safe. But revenge was complicated when the person you blamed was also someone you never stopped loving. Isabella had returned to destroy the people responsible for her pain. She had prepared herself to face enemies. She had prepared herself to face danger. But she had not prepared herself to face Damian again. Eventually, Damian followed the trail of the mysterious person attacking his enemies. The clues led him closer and closer, until finally he found the person behind everything. A woman stood in front of him. She looked different. Her appearance had changed. Her confidence was stronger. Her eyes carried years of pain and survival. Damian stared at her, unable to understand what he was seeing, because the woman standing before him was someone the world had already buried. Isabella Monroe was alive. The woman Damian Blackwell, buried years ago, was standing in front of him, but she was no longer the woman he remembered. For a moment, the most powerful man in the city forgot how to react. Damian had faced enemies who wanted him destroyed. He had survived betrayals, attacks, and impossible situations, but nothing prepared him for this. Isabella Monroe was alive, the person he had mourned, the person he believed he had lost forever. She was standing only a few feet away. Damian searched her face, looking for the woman he remembered. The kindness was still there. The same eyes that once looked at him, without fear, were still looking back at him. But something had changed. Pain had replaced innocence. Strength had replaced vulnerability. The woman standing before him had survived a world that Damian could never protect her from. Isabella finally revealed the truth. She explained that she survived the attack. She explained that someone had hidden her from the world and made everyone believe she was gone forever. But most importantly, she revealed that she knew what really happened. The attack was not an accident. Someone had planned everything. Someone had wanted Damian broken. Damian struggled to accept that she had carried this pain alone for years. He tried explaining that he never abandoned her. He told her that he searched for answers, that he never stopped believing something was wrong. He had spent years trying to discover who took her away. But Isabella had already lived those years believing she had been forgotten. And that was the wound that hurt the most. A person can survive losing their life, but surviving while believing the person you love stopped searching for you creates a different kind of pain. Part of Isabella wanted to believe Damian. She remembered the man who protected her, the man who allowed her to see the humanity hidden behind his dangerous reputation. But another part of her remembered waking up alone, remembered losing everything, remembered carrying the pain while Damian continued living without knowing the truth. Forgiveness was harder than revenge. Revenge required anger. Forgiveness required facing the emotions she had tried to bury. Instead of walking away, Isabella and Damian decided to uncover the truth together. They followed the evidence left behind by Victor Kingsley and discovered something much bigger than either of them expected. Victor was not acting alone. Someone had been helping him. Someone had provided information about Damian's movements. Someone had access to secrets that only a trusted person could know. As they investigated together, the distance between them slowly began to disappear. Damian saw the strength Isabella had gained. She was no longer someone he needed to protect from the world. She was someone capable of standing beside him. Isabella also began seeing Damian differently. She realized the man she blamed had been fighting his own battle. He had lost her too. The trust they once shared did not return instantly, but it started rebuilding through actions, through honesty, through the choice to face the truth together. Their old feelings were still there, hidden beneath years of pain and misunderstanding. But just as they began uncovering the real enemy, Isabella found one final piece of evidence, a hidden record, a forgotten connection, a name that changed everything. Because the betrayal did not come from Victor Kingsley alone. It came from someone Damian trusted more than anyone. The Mafia King had destroyed enemies before, but this time he was fighting for the woman who came back from the dead. For years, Damian Blackwell believed power was the only way to survive. He built his empire by understanding weaknesses, controlling threats, and removing anyone who tried to destroy what he created. But after Isabella Monroe returned, something changed. This was no longer about protecting an empire. It was about protecting the person who had once saved him from becoming completely lost. Together, Damian and Isabella began dismantling Victor Kingsley's organization piece by piece. But they did it differently. Damian brought the power, resources, and influence that made his name feared across the city. Isabella brought something even more dangerous, the truth. During the years she spent hidden from the world, she collected information Victor never expected anyone to find. She understood his methods, his weaknesses, and the secrets he believed would remain buried forever. Their strengths became a perfect combination. Damian knew how to defeat powerful enemies. Isabella knew how to expose them. The first step was destroying Victor's protection. For years, Victor survived because influential people stood behind him. Business partners, hidden supporters, and powerful connections helped him avoid consequences. But Isabella uncovered the evidence they never wanted revealed. Every secret became a weapon. Every betrayal became proof. Slowly, Victor's allies began abandoning him. The people who once protected him realized they were standing beside a man whose entire empire was built on deception. His influence weakened. His organization began collapsing, and for the first time, Victor Kingsley experienced the same fear he had created in others. But the woman who helped bring him down was no longer the same person he once targeted. Isabella had changed. She was not the innocent woman who entered Damian's dangerous world without understanding the risks. She was not the victim waiting for someone else to save her. She was a survivor, a strategist, an equal partner. Damian noticed that change more than anyone. He no longer saw Isabella as someone he needed to hide away from danger. He saw someone who could stand beside him when everything was falling apart. And Isabella saw a different side of Damian. The man she once loved was still there. The difference was that now he was learning how to fight without letting anger control him. For years, Damian's revenge came from pain. Now it came from purpose. He was not destroying Victor because he wanted power. He was destroying him because nobody else deserved to suffer the way Isabella did. Their final move against Victor was carefully planned. The evidence was released. The alliances disappeared. The empire Victor spent years building started collapsing in front of him. The man who believed he could destroy Damian Blackwell finally realized something too late. He never understood the strength of the person he tried to break. Victor fell. His organization was finished. His influence disappeared. But before he vanished completely, Victor revealed one final secret. A secret that made Damian and Isabella realize their battle was far from over. Because Victor Kingsley had not been the beginning of their nightmare. He had only been the first piece of a much larger plan. The attack that almost killed Isabella was only the beginning. The final battle was not about money or power. It was about whether love could survive betrayal. After Victor Kingsley's empire collapsed, Damian Blackwell and Isabella Monroe believed they were finally close to the truth. But the final pieces of evidence revealed something far more dangerous. Victor had not been the mastermind. He was only a tool. The person controlling everything from the shadows was Alexander Vane, a former ally who had once stood beside Damian during the early days of his empire. Alexander understood Damian better than anyone. He knew his strategies. He knew his weaknesses. And he knew that the only way to truly destroy Damian Blackwell was not by attacking his empire. It was by destroying the one person who changed him, Isabella. Years earlier, Alexander saw Damian's growing influence as a threat. He believed Damian's loyalty and leadership made him impossible to control. But when Isabella entered Damian's life, Alexander noticed something unexpected. The Mafia King had changed. The man who once trusted nobody began caring about someone more than power. And Alexander saw that as weakness. He believed Isabella was the reason Damian became vulnerable. So he created a plan to remove her and turn Damian back into the cold man he used to be. But Alexander made one mistake. He underestimated what Isabella's return would create. She was no longer the woman who needed saving. She was the woman who survived everything meant to destroy her. As the final confrontation approached, Damian and Isabella prepared together. For the first time, Damian did not try to keep Isabella away from danger. He trusted her completely. She had earned her place beside him. The world that once saw Isabella as a weakness now saw her differently. She was fearless, intelligent, respected. She had entered Damian's world without understanding its rules. But she survived because she created her own. Damian also changed. He was still powerful, still feared, still the man enemies avoided. But he was no longer controlled by revenge. For years, anger guided his decisions. Now, something stronger guided him. Love. When Alexander finally made his move, he tried using their past against them. He reminded Damian of every betrayal, every loss, every moment when trusting someone caused pain. He wanted Damian to believe that love was the reason he suffered. But Damian understood something he never knew before. Love was never his weakness. Losing himself because of pain was. The final confrontation began as Alexander attempted to separate them one last time. He believed Damian would choose his empire. He believed Isabella would choose revenge. But neither happened. Instead, they chose each other. Because after everything they lost, they finally understood that trust was not created by avoiding pain. It was created by surviving it together. As Alexander prepared to claim victory, Isabella stepped forward. She had discovered one final secret hidden inside his plan, a truth Alexander never believed anyone could find. The enemy believed Damian had finally lost everything, but Isabella revealed the one secret powerful enough to destroy everything he had built. The world remembered Damian Blackwell as a ruthless Mafia King, but history remembered Isabella Monroe as the woman who brought his humanity back. The final confrontation with Alexander Vane changed everything. For years, Alexander believed fear was a foundation of power. He believed people could only be controlled through secrets, threats, and betrayal. But his plan failed because he misunderstood the one thing that made Damian and Isabella stronger. They were no longer fighting alone. When Isabella revealed a hidden truth behind Alexander's operation, his entire empire collapsed. The evidence exposed years of manipulation, secret alliances, and betrayals that even Damian had never seen coming. The people who once supported Alexander abandoned him. The connections that protected him disappeared. The power he spent years building vanished in a matter of days. The man who believed he could control everyone was finally destroyed by the truth he tried to hide. But the victory was not only about defeating an enemy. It was about what happened afterward. Damian Blackwell had a choice. He could return to the man he was before Isabella, a man controlled by anger, a man who believed fear was the only way to survive. Or he could become someone different. For the first time, Damian chose change. He rebuilt his empire with stronger foundations. Loyalty became more valuable than fear. Trust became more important than control. The people who stood beside him were no longer just followers. They became family. The Mafia world still respected Damian's power. His name still carried influence. His enemies still understood the danger challenging him. But they also noticed something different. The Mafia King was no longer ruled by revenge, because Isabella had shown him that protecting something was more powerful than destroying something. And Isabella Monroe was no longer the woman everyone believed was lost. She had transformed completely. She was no longer the victim of an attack. She was no longer the woman hidden away from the world. She became Damian's partner, a respected figure who earned her place through courage, intelligence, and strength. The same people who once saw her as Damian's weakness now understood the truth. She was the reason he became stronger. Their relationship was not rebuilt because they forgot the pain. They rebuilt it because they faced the pain together. The betrayal, the loss, the years they spent believing they had lost each other forever. Those moments did not destroy them. They changed them. Because sometimes losing someone teaches you their true value. Sometimes the person who disappears from your life returns not to destroy everything you built. Sometimes they return to change the person you were meant to become. Years later, people still told the story of Isabella Monroe. Not because everyone believed she died. Not because she returned seeking revenge. But because she became the only person who could defeat the darkness inside the Mafia King's heart. And in the end, the greatest victory Damian Blackwell ever achieved was not controlling an empire. It was finding the one person who made him want to become a better man.